So, we've got this short story that we're going to take a look at. Quiet. We've got this short story that we're going to look at. Okay? I'm going to read aloud to you. You're going to listen. I'm going to tell you what I'm thinking while I'm reading, the questions I'm asking myself, and what I'm noticing. And all you're doing is listening. Because on Monday, when you see me again, you'll be doing this yourself. So you want to make sure that you're paying attention. Okay, ready? The All-American Slurp. The first time our family was invited out to dinner, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to begin again. The first time our family was invited out to dinner in America, we disgraced ourselves while eating celery. We had emigrated country from China, and during our early days here, we had a hard time with American table manners. In China, we never ate celery raw or any kind of vegetable raw. We always had to disinfect the vegetables in boiling water first. When we were presented with our first relish tray, the raw celery caught us unprepared. We had been invited to dinner by our neighbors, Gleasons. After arriving at the house, we shook hands with our hosts and packed ourselves into a sofa. As our family of four sat stiffly in a row, my younger brother and I stole glances at our parents for a clue as to what to do next. Mrs. Gleason offered the relish tray to Mother. The tray looked pretty, with its tiny red radishes, curly sticks of carrots, and long, slender stalks of pale green celery. "Do try some of the celery, Mrs. Lynn," she said. "It's from a local farmer, and it's sweet." Mother picked one of the green stalks, and Father followed suit. Then I picked up a stalk, and my brother did too. So there we sat, each with a stalk of celery in our right hand. Mrs. Gleason kept smiling. "Would you like to try some of the dip, Mrs. Lynn? It's my own recipe. Sour cream and onion flakes with a dash of Tabasco sauce." Most Chinese don't care for dairy products, and in those days I wasn't even ready to drink fresh milk. Sour cream sounded perfectly revolting. Our family shook heads in unison. Mrs. Gleason went off with the relish tray to the other guests, and we carefully watched to see what they did. Everyone seemed to eat the raw vegetables quite happily. So I'm stopping here because I feel like for me this is a contrast and contradiction, because I don't expect that people would need to look at other people to know how to eat celery. But she did tell me earlier in the story that her family wasn't used to eating raw vegetables. And so for me, I make a connection here. There was a movie I used to watch called Big, and it stars Tom Hanks. And in the movie, he's a kid, and he goes to a carnival, and one of the games turns him into an adult. But he's still... Quiet. He still has the mentality of a child. And so he goes to this fancy party, and they have the, like, baby corn, right? And he's at the party trying to eat it like it's corn on the cob, right? So I'm envisioning that sort of picture in the minds of this girl and her family, right? They're thinking that they don't want to eat the celery wrong, okay? And so I'm thinking, why is the character doing that? Well, the character feels uncomfortable. She wants to fit in, and she wants to do things the right way, so she's looking at people. So I think this is going to give me a clue to the conflict, an internal conflict my main character faces, which is trying to fit in. Mother took a bite of her celery. Crunch. "It's not bad," she whispered. Father took a bite of his celery. Crunch. "Yes, it is good," he said, looking surprised. I took a bite, and then my brother. Crunch, crunch. It was more than good. It was delicious. Raw celery has a slight sparkle, a zingy taste that you don't get in cooked celery. When Mrs. Gleason came around with the relish tray, we each took another stalk of celery, except my brother. He took two. So I'm stopping myself here again because I feel like it's a constant contradiction to me as a reader, because I can't imagine why someone would get so excited about celery. But I can connect to it because I feel like I have tried new things before that weren't so exciting, like grilled pineapple, and it turned out that it was really good. Quiet. Okay, so then with contrast and contradictions, I have to ask myself, why is the character doing this? Well, I think the character's doing it because he's excited. So maybe this young lady and her family are going to find out that while it's scary to be somewhere new, it can also be exciting because you can try new foods and learn new things. Okay? All right. So there was only one problem. Long strings ran through the length of the stalk and they got caught in my teeth. When I helped my mother in the kitchen, I always pulled the strings out before slicing celery. I pulled the strings out of my stalk. Zip, zip. My brother followed suit. Zip, zip. To my left, my parents were taking care of their own stalks. Zip, zip, zip. So I stopped myself here, not because there's a signpost, but because for me, I'm trying to keep track of what I can see in my head. And in this case, I'm not familiar with this process. So I'm having a hard time making a mental image of it. So I'm going to try to hold on to it in case it's something I need to know. But for right now, I feel like I can probably understand the story without fully understanding this process she's describing. Suddenly, I realized that there was dead silence except for our zipping. Looking up, I saw that the eyes of everyone in the room were on our family. Mr. and Mrs. Gleason, their daughter Meg, who was my friend, and their neighbors the Badells. They were all staring at us as we busily pulled the strings off celery. So here I'm thinking that the character has had an aha moment, and it's sort of two-part, right? First of all, she's noticed everybody's looking at them, but more than that, I think she's probably realized why, and it's because whatever they're doing is not normal for these people. So people are looking at them because they're weird, or what they're doing is weird. And so for me, I think, how might this change things? Well, it might make my character more self-conscious about her differences. That wasn't the end of it. Mrs. Gleason announced that dinner was served and invited us to the dining table. It was lavishly covered with platters of food, but we couldn't see any chairs at the table. So we helpfully carried over some dining chairs and sat down. All the guests just stood there. Mrs. Gleason bent down and whispered to us, "This is a buffet dinner. You help yourselves to some food and eat it in the living room." Our family beat a retreat back to the sofa as if chased by enemy soldiers. For the rest of the evening, too mortified to go back to the dining table, I nursed a bit of potato salad on my plate. The next day, Meg and I got on the school bus together. I wasn't sure how she would feel about me after the spectacle our family made at the party. But she was just the same as usual, and the only reference she made to the party was, "Hope you and your folks got enough to eat last night. You certainly didn't take very much." Mom never tries to figure out how much food to prepare. She just puts everything on the table and hopes for the best. I began to relax. The Gleason's dinner party wasn't so different from a Chinese meal after all. My mother also puts everything on the table and hopes for the best. So here the character is realizing something else. I think she's realizing that she's not that different from her friend and her friend's family. How might this change things going forward? Well, earlier I knew she was feeling self-conscious, but now that she knows that there is a similarity, she might feel more comfortable moving forward. So what you guys will be doing on Monday is you will be reading another section of the story, okay? And what I'm going to ask you to do is to take notes on the seal method and anything related to the signposts, okay? So what you're going to be doing for me is just taking some notes about what you've read, okay? So if I'm looking at this, I might think about actions of the characters. So I'm going to put an A here, and I'm going to write a little summary of what happens. Mrs. Gleason offers them celery, right? And they all accept, even though they've never tried it before. So they all take a stalk, even though they've never tried it before. And this is on page 1, so I'm going to note that too. Now, the question I have to ask myself with actions, and you have this in your notes, is what kind of person would do that, right? So I think that they are either adventurous or willing to try new things, or they're very respectful. And they know that to show respect to their host, they should try what their host is offering, okay? It could be a mixture of both, right? Okay. And then I know that on page 1, I also have a contrast and contradiction, right? And that's when the narrator describes how they watched the other party guests eat the celery, right? And I'm asking myself, why is the character doing that? Okay. The characters are looking at the other guests because they've never eaten raw celery and want to do it right. So, this is the work that you'll be doing on Monday when you read another section of the story. You'll be looking for things the characters say, think, their effect on others, their actions, what they look like. We might not get too much of an explanation of that, okay? I might add here my aha moment on page 2. Aha moment, page 2. Suddenly I realized I saw the eyes of everyone on our family, right? And my question is, how might this change things? Okay? This might make the character more self-conscious. Now, could I be wrong? Absolutely. And as a reader, I have to be ready to change my mind if I'm presented with information that challenges what I think. Okay? So if I make a prediction and I change my mind, I always have to be ready to admit that I was wrong. Okay?